Okay, in the previous video we talked about the derivative of a secant x, so we're going to use that on this particular problem. The whole problem itself is a fraction, so we need to apply the quotient rule here. Okay, so I got my f and g, top one is f, bottom one is g. I got the bottom thing times the derivative of the top. The derivative of secant, we're going to do that automatically. So we're going to apply the formula for it we talked about earlier. That's secant x, tangent x. So we've got bottom times the derivative of the top. We got a minus the top thing, secant x. Derivative of the bottom, derivative of x is 1 over the bottom squared. Next, we're just going to simplify the top if we can. And the only thing we can really do with that is we can pull out a secant, because a secant is a common term that's there, and you get x tangent x minus 1, and then the bottom one is x squared. And there's not much more that we can do with that. These x's don't cancel because you have to have an x in all the terms in order to cancel it out. So in this case, that would be as far as you can go. Okay, for part B, we notice we have two things multiplied together. So the first instinct you might have is to apply the product rule to this. Now you could go ahead and apply the product rule and you can get the answer that way. However, with some of these trig problems, it might be easier to use identities and multiply it out first. That means that you'll have less work to do later and you may not have to even use the product rule. So let's do some simplifying on this first. Okay, so no derivative yet. All I'm going to do is apply a identity. The cosecant, we can apply identity to that, and that's going to be 1 over sine x. So derivative of cosecant is 1 over sine. We're going to multiply this by each thing here. So this is cosine x over 1, and you can write that as 2 sine x over 1. And we're going to take this and multiply into each thing. Here's what you'll get when you multiply it in. If I take cosine times 1 over sine, what I'll get is cosine x over sine x. And if I multiply these two together, I'll get 2 sine x over sine x. So again, I multiplied the first one by this one I multiplied by the other one inside the parentheses, so did a distributing property there. Next, I need to simplify this one. Cosine over sine, that's an identity I can put in. Cosine over sine is going to be cotangent x. And then over here, the sines are going to cancel, and I get cotangent x plus 2. So now I have something that's a lot easier to work with the derivative. Using product rule here, I would have ended up with a bunch of things I would have to do some more simplifying with, but in this case, it's already simplified down to there. So now I can just apply the derivative directly to this. I don't need to use the product rule anymore. The derivative of cotangent is negative cosecant squared x. The derivative of 2 is 0, which means that now this is going to be your final answer. The derivative of this whole thing here is going to be just simply negative cosecant x squared.